two Russian hockey prodigies, drafted just a year apart, are now skating under the brightest lights in the world. One just wrapped up a rookie campaign that proved he can handle the grind of an 82-game NHL season, while the other stormed onto the scene with a debut so electrifying it made fans believe they were witnessing the birth of something historic. Matvei Michkov in Philadelphia, Ivan Demidov in Montreal. Two different styles, two different paths, but both carrying the weight of their franchise's futures on their shoulders. It's not just projection anymore. It's not about who might succeed overseas. Both are here, both are playing in the NHL, and both have already shown flashes of superstardom. The question is simple: which one will rise higher? But the answer is anything but simple. Before they were household names in North America, both Michkov and Demidov rewrote junior hockey history in Russia, but they did it in very different ways. Michkov was the sniper, the pure scorer who could fill the net at will. Even as a teenager, he was breaking records in the MHL, Russia's top junior league. In his draft -2 year, he tallied 56 points in 56 games, becoming one of the most prolific under-17 players the league had ever seen. By the time he was 16, he was already earning comparisons to Ovechkin and Panarin, not just for his shot, but for his confidence. Demidov, on the other hand, carved his reputation as the playmaker. His hands and vision made him lethal in tight spaces. He wasn't always the one finishing the play, but he was almost always involved in creating it. His draft -1 season, 64 points in 44 MHL games, cemented him as one of Russia's most dynamic prospects. Scouts saw him not just as a passer, but as someone who could dictate the flow of a game. From the start, their strengths diverged. Michkov was a natural finisher. Demidov was a natural creator. And in a hockey world obsessed with who's better, the seeds of rivalry were planted long before either crossed the ocean. But if junior numbers made both legends in Russia, it was their draft journeys that truly highlighted how different their paths would be. And this is where the story takes a sharp turn. Michkov's draft year was 2023. On pure talent alone, he was a top 3 pick. Some scouts even argued he had the highest upside of the entire class. But there was one massive cloud hanging over him: the Russian factor, contract commitments in the KHL, political uncertainty, and the risk of a star player staying overseas too long. Because of that, he slid, and when the Philadelphia Flyers took him 7th overall, it was seen as both a gamble and a potential jackpot. If he ever came over, he could change the franchise. If he didn't, the pick could haunt them. Demidov's draft year was 2024, and while he didn't have the same political baggage, he carried the weight of being called a mystery box. Scouts adored his creativity, but he hadn't played enough high-level KHL minutes for anyone to know exactly how his game would translate. The Montreal Canadiens took him 5th overall, betting that his playmaking and vision would blossom at the NHL level. For a franchise desperate for elite offensive talent, Demidov wasn't just another pick. He was their chance to finally draft a player who could carry the offense in a way no one had since Guy Lafleur. Both slid relative to their raw talent. Both had doubters. Both were selected by franchises that needed a savior. But while Demidov had to wait for his KHL deal to expire, Michkov wasted no time making his NHL arrival known, and that's when their paths finally started to cross. When the 2024-25 NHL season began, all eyes in Philadelphia were on the 19-year-old Russian phenom. Could Michkov actually live up to the hype? Could he really make an impact right away in the NHL? The answer came quickly and loudly. Michkov played 80 games in his rookie campaign, scoring 26 goals and adding 37 assists for a total of 63 points. For a teenager on a rebuilding Flyers squad, it was nothing short of sensational. He wasn't just scoring highlight reel goals either. Michkov showed patience on the power play, awareness in the offensive zone, and a willingness to try the kind of creative moves that get fans out of their seats. There were moments of inconsistency, games where he disappeared, shifts where his defensive effort was questioned, but the overall package was undeniable. By season's end, Michkov had been named to the NHL All-Rookie team. He even finished 4th in Calder Trophy voting, behind Connor Bedard and a couple of other breakout rookies. For Flyers fans, it was proof that the gamble had paid off. The Russian sniper had arrived. But while Michkov was thriving in Philly, a different kind of buzz was building in Montreal, and it came to a head in April 2025. For Canadiens fans, patience had become a way of life. Ever since drafting Ivan Demidov 5th overall in 2024, they had to wait. One more season in Russia, one more contract to expire, one more year of wondering. Then, on April 8th, 2025, the wait ended. Demidov signed his 3-year entry-level contract with Montreal. Less than a week later, he made his NHL debut. And what a debut it was. In his first game wearing the Habs jersey, Demidov scored a goal and added an assist. 2 points in his very first night, instantly cementing his name in Canadiens history as one of the youngest players ever to have a multi-point debut. The Bell Center crowd erupted, and suddenly the hype was no longer just projection. It was real, but Demidov wasn't done. Just days later, he found himself in the intensity of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Montreal faced Washington in the first round, and Demidov, instead of shrinking under pressure, delivered 2 assists in his playoff debut. He became the youngest Hab ever to record multiple points in a playoff game. It was the kind of storybook entrance that instantly elevated him from high pick with promise to face of the future. Now, both Michkov and Demidov had officially arrived in the NHL, but that's when the real comparisons began. With both Michkov and Demidov now playing in the NHL, the hockey world finally had the chance to see them under the same spotlight, and right away, their styles stood out. Michkov had an entire season to showcase his game. He was fast, opportunistic, and fearless in the offensive zone. His shot release was NHL ready from day one, and even veterans struggled to defend him when he found open space. On the power play, he was lethal, setting up on the flank and letting one-timers rip. Flyers fans saw shades of the great Russian snipers who came before him, the kind of players who could change a game with a single touch of the puck. But Michkov's weaknesses were also on display. There were nights where his defensive effort lagged, times when he stayed too long on the perimeter. Coaches noticed that while his offensive upside was sky high, he wasn't always reliable without the puck. And in a city like Philadelphia, where fans demand grit and effort every shift, those lapses didn't go unnoticed. Demidov, on the other hand, had only a handful of games to make an impression, but what he lacked in sample size, he made up for in electricity. His NHL debut was a showpiece, a goal, an assist, and instant chemistry with Montreal's top line. In the playoffs, his vision shone through. Even against the grinding pressure of Washington's defense, Demidov made plays few rookies would even attempt. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. Michkov was the shooter, the risk taker, the player who could end a game with one flick of the wrist. Demidov was the connector, the brain on the ice, the player who elevated everyone around him, and that contrast is what makes this rivalry so fascinating, because one represents flash, the other represents finesse, and in the NHL you need both, but rarely does one player master them at the same time. Ask 10 scouts who they'd rather have, Michkov or Demidov, and you might get 10 different answers. That's how close this debate has become. Michkov's strengths are obvious. His shot is already among the most dangerous in the league. He has the confidence to try plays others wouldn't dare, and at just 19, he already produced like a top-line winger in the NHL. For Philadelphia, he's not just a prospect anymore. He's the centerpiece of their rebuild. But the questions remain. Can he round out his defensive game? Can he play a consistent 82-game schedule without stretches of invisibility? And perhaps most importantly, can he adapt his style when opponents start game planning specifically to shut him down? Demidov, by contrast, is praised for his habits. Coaches love that he plays a team-oriented game. His vision allows line mates to thrive, and he's less prone to the kind of disappearing acts that sometimes plague Michkov. His hockey IQ is off the charts, and that gives him a safer projection. But there are concerns too. Will his creativity translate over the grind of a full NHL season? Can he handle the physicality of bigger, faster defenders? And does he have the same finishing ability that makes Michkov such a game breaker? In a way, it's a classic debate. Do you bet on the flashy sniper who can change games in an instant, or the cerebral playmaker who may be more reliable night after night? The answer might depend on what each franchise needs most, and that's where things get even more interesting. For the Flyers, Michkov represents hope, a franchise that has been searching for a true superstar since the days of Eric Lindros, and Claude Giroux finally has a player who can ignite the fan base. His rookie season proved he isn't just hype. He can carry an offense even as a teenager. If he continues to grow, Philadelphia could have the cornerstone they've been missing for decades. For Montreal, Demidov could be the missing piece in their long rebuild. Canadiens fans have endured years of mediocrity waiting for the next great forward to arrive. alive. When Demidov signed his contract and stepped on the ice, it felt like a turning point. His debut and playoff performance didn't just give hope, they gave proof that the future had arrived. And here's where the rivalry deepens. These aren't just two talented Russians, they're two players tied to the identities of two of the NHL's most passionate markets. Philadelphia is a blue-collar, hard-nosed hockey town desperate for a star to bring them back to relevance. Montreal is the most historic franchise in the sport, desperate for the next icon to follow in the footsteps of Lafleur and Béliveau. If Michkov thrives while Demidov struggles, Flyers fans will declare victory. If Demidov blossoms into Montreal's savior while Michkov stalls, Canadiens fans will never let Philadelphia forget it. This isn't just a player versus player rivalry. It's shaping up to be a franchise versus franchise rivalry, with two entire cities watching every shift. And that sets the stage for the question every hockey fan wants answered. So who's better? Who will dominate the next decade, Michkov or Demidov? Right now, it's too early to crown a winner. Michkov has the edge in NHL experience and production, already proving he can put up points across an entire season. Demidov, meanwhile, has shown in just a handful of games that his creativity and composure can shine even under playoff pressure. Both players are young, both will make mistakes, both will go through slumps. But what makes this rivalry so captivating is that we're not comparing a veteran to a rookie. We're comparing two teenagers, drafted a year apart, who are now carrying the futures of two of the NHL's proudest franchises. Michkov brings the flash, Demidov brings the finesse. Together, they represent the next wave of Russian superstardom in the NHL. And in the end, maybe the real winner isn't Philadelphia or Montreal. Maybe it's the league itself, because rivalries like this don't just create stars, they create legends. The only question left is simple. When we look back a decade from now, whose name will be remembered as the one who defined this era? So what do you think? Will Michkov's shot make him the NHL's next unstoppable scorer? Or will Demidov's vision make him the face of the Canadiens' future? Drop your answer in the comments, because this debate is just getting started.